Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on our webinar. Appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day. Hopefully we have some good information for you to take away and work within your businesses. Today our topic is the final topic in a series of webinars we've been doing around backup and disaster recovery. Today we're going to be talking about the best practices for building a disaster recovery plan and doing the testing of that plan. As I mentioned, this is the final webinar in a series of 6. You can see the topics that we've completed in the past. Some really good information is out there regarding these on our website. On YouTube, we have all of these recorded where you could go back and play them when you have time and listen through. We have white papers for each of these. If you didn't get those, if you're on those webinars, you didn't get the white paper, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to send that over to you. We're getting those up on the website. I think a few of them are there. We've got to get the rest on there. But there's some really good information that goes with these PowerPoints and live webinars to take back and work within your organization. Okay, so for today, we're going to have a really quick introduction about Apex and what we do. We're going to talk about why does your business need a plan? Why would that be important to your organization? Key components to put inside of your disaster recovery plan, and then you need to be testing that plan to make sure it actually is going to work when you need it. So we're going to talk about some tips for doing that testing, and then there'll be time at the end for questions. Clayton is our host today. He's going to be pulling any of the questions you type into the question box, and we'll get to those at the end. Okay, my name is George Pasadakis. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Apex Technology Management. You can see the team there. We're based in Redding, California. This is our 25th anniversary, so we've been doing this for quite a long time. We've got about 30 employees, lots of experience. We provide both on-site and remote IT support with 24/7 response. We take care of our clients throughout California and a few in some other states as well. And we have lots of certifications you can see there from the major vendors out there in our space, Microsoft, Cisco, Citrix, etc. We'd like to really make sure the team is up on the latest technology and that we're ready to bring any of the new capabilities to your business to give you the benefits of better productivity, lower cost, more scalability, those types of things as these vendors are releasing new technology. We're really proud. This year we were ranked number 258 in the MSP Mentor Top 501 Global Managed Service Provider list. So they take a look at all the managed service providers like Apex around the world, come up with their top 501 list, and this year we were ranked number 258 globally, which is a big accomplishment for us up here in Redding. So we're real happy about that, and that's just testament that our clients have placed their trust in us. Our team is really doing a good job taking care of them, and we're staying up on top of all the latest technology for you. We've got a fully staffed network operations center and help desk. We just moved into this new building that you see here 2 months ago, almost to the day, 2 months ago yesterday. We're going to have an open house if you're in the area. On September 22nd, we'll be getting some emails out and invitations on that, but save the date. It'll be probably 3 to 6 p.m. on September 22nd. You can come take a really good tour of our new facility here in Redding. We do have help desk technicians that are always here in the office, able to take yours or your staff's calls when you need. We have other technicians that will come out in the field if we need to dispatch somebody, but these guys that you see here and gals, they pretty much answer the call, and with an average of 17 seconds, you're speaking to somebody live. So we're real proud of that, and our users find that very helpful to be able to reach out and call them directly and not just have to submit a ticket online or via email. Okay, so that's about Apex. Let's talk about today's topic here, disaster recovery and a plan. Why do you need a plan? Do you have a plan? Gartner Group did a recent survey of the small and medium business sector, and this is what they found. 57% of the organizations said yes, they have a plan, but it needs more work. So some of the information we'll talk about today may be able to help them out. And a whopping 27%, however, said no, they don't have a plan at all. but they'd like to get one ready. The rest are kind of in the middle ground. Um, so this is a really important thing to think about for your business, and how are you going to provide services? How quickly can you recover in the event of a disaster? And we'll talk about that some more. Okay, why do you need a disaster recovery plan? There's a lot of different things that can happen to your business. You can see some of them that I put up here. We all know about natural disasters, fires, floods, earthquakes like we just experienced in Italy, technical glitches and system failures. They're kind of related, but to me, a technical glitch is you have some work you're going to do, let's say, on one of your core key mission critical systems. That work scheduled to take place after hours, and during that process something happens that's unexpected and your systems don't come up as quickly as you were hoping or you planned for. That's what I would consider a technical glitch. A system failure is your production systems are running normally. Something happens, like a power supply may go out on your core server. Your hard drive may crash, it may fill up, that kind of thing. That's what I would consider a system failure, a little bit different than the technical glitch. We see these a lot. So depending on the reliability of your system, if you have any high availability or fault tolerance, that will help out in that regard. And how old is your equipment? Power outages. These things happen, especially in the summer. A few years back in California, we had rolling power outages. The state could not provide enough power, and during the day, depending on your zip code and your address, you were going to lose power for a couple of hours, and they were just rotating that across the area, sharing the pain, spreading the pain and sharing it. Cyber attacks. These obviously are on the news all the time. You're hearing about them. You definitely need to be protecting yourself. We've had some webinars on cybersecurity. We're getting ready to do some really cool things in that regard to start providing some really helpful information to the small and medium business sector. But this could be a direct hacking where somebody's trying to get into your network and see what they can find and see what kind of damage they can do. This could be ransomware or some other type of malware that an infection gets on your network through either an email that's coming in, somebody clicks on an attachment, somebody goes to an infected website. Lots of different ways for these to take place, but they all are lumped in that category of cyber attacks. They can take your network down. They can, if it's ransomware, they can lock up your data where you can't open your files or access your key customer database, for example. And we're finding that's a major impact on a business when you can't get to your production systems from something like that. It becomes a big and expensive issue very quickly. And then data theft. There are cases that we've dealt with and you see in the news where it could be an internal employee is pulling data off of your network and either to hold you hostage later, try and blackmail you, sell it on the marketplace. There's a lot of things out there that you need to be worried about, and it could affect your ability to run your business on a daily basis. So there are other things, but these are the main ones. The important thing is you are recognizing that something like this could happen, and that you're at the point where you want to build a plan to be prepared. So if it does, then at least you've done what you can to ensure that you can be back up and running as quickly as possible in the event of an emergency. Okay, I talked about this on one of the first webinars in detail, but I wanted to throw this slide back in here. We tend to think mostly about the information and systems that we have in our business, but you also have your people, and that's both your employees and your customers. Especially in the event of a natural disaster, you need to be thinking about how you're going to protect them. How are you going to ride out the period before help is available with your employees and potentially any customers that are in one of your facilities? So I've got a lot more detail on one of the previous webinars on this and white papers, but don't forget to think about that. Of course, your information and systems, whether it's paper-based or system-based, you need to be thinking about how you're going to access that, how you're going to deal with it in the event of different types of disasters, and then of course your facilities. How do you know in the event of an earthquake it's safe to continue working inside your facility? Who's going to have responsibility for making that call, and who do they talk to? What about gas leaks? What about backup location? If your location has a flood or a fire or an earthquake affected, do you have an alternate location for your team to get to when it's safe to resume your business operations as quickly as possible? So don't forget about those three components to include in your plan. The rest of today, we're mostly going to focus on the technical aspect and information system aspect of a disaster recovery plan. There's several different types of components that go into the plan. I'm going to talk about these briefly today, and they should help you put together your own plan and think about the key things that you'll need. So there's a whole lot of work up front that you have to do when you're defining and you're building your plan. What's your plan scope? What's the purpose of it? And who do you have the authority to put this kind of plan together and get cooperation from different people within your organization? Most likely you're a small or medium business, so this is pretty easy to do. You don't have to go through multiple levels. My background in the corporate world, at some companies I was at, it took forever to get anything like this done because it had to get multiple levels of approval. I think you're going to be in a better situation in a small business. So, but what's the plan scope? What are we trying to cover in the event of a disaster? What do we need to bring up and get back in shape to run our business? There may be systems you have that are mission critical. There may be some that aren't. So are you going to include everything in your plan to be fully up and running, or are you going to cover the critical systems that you can operate in an emergency mode? Management approval and funding. This is obviously an important thing. If you're just a staff member at a small or medium business, you're going to want to get your manager or one of the owners involved. Make sure they're on board with this. You're definitely going to need their buy-in because it's going to take some resources and time and potentially some money to put this plan together, and then it's going to take time to test it, as we'll talk about in a little while. So you're going to want to get them involved right away. Make sure they understand how important this is. They know the impact of not having your information systems available, but they may not know how to go about creating the disaster recovery plan. So you could use this information to help sell them on that. You're going to need to define who on your staff is going to help with building the plan, and then more importantly, executing the plan in the event of a disaster. What are their roles and responsibilities? Somebody may have responsibility for your key IT system. Somebody else may have responsibility for the safety of your staff and your employees. Somebody else may have responsibility over the facility issues. Many times in a small or medium business, you're going to be wearing multiple hats. Might be you that's doing all of that. But think about it. Is that reasonable? Is that feasible while you're building the plan? Who is authorized to officially declare a disaster and start the implementation of the plan? Obviously, people are going to need to make the call on that. It's going to spring into action a lot of the things that you'll have in the plan, but you need to really have a key decision point and know who is actually authorized and who's backup. What if that main person, the owner, isn't available? There's no communication, you can't reach them. Is there a backup person that's at the site that can start the plan and declare it an official disaster and get on the way? You're going to want to think about and build step-by-step procedures to recover things, both physical, mechanical, and virtual. Okay, so the physical site, you may have things you need to do to get things running. If the power went out, how are you going to get that restored? Bring systems back online. Other mechanical issues. What if your air conditioning system doesn't fire back up, or your refrigeration system if you are a restaurant or a food distribution center? Those that you're going to need to bring in contractors potentially to help you out. So you want to think about that build the step-by-step procedures that are going to cover you in most cases, and have that up and running. You need to think about ahead of time and define in your plan what are your procedures for alerting your staff and letting them know what's going on, are they needed, where do they go to, that kind of a thing. You may not have your main lines of communication available. So if you call their cell phone, what if the cell phone towers are knocked out or the power's out to them, or a hacker has taken them down along with other things? Do you have a backup mechanism? Can you email them using a system that is not in your network that may also be down? Do you have home phone numbers that you can call, landlines, that type of thing? So you need to think about that ahead of time, document that in your plan, and then it's right there ready to go. Your staff's going to know to check that Gmail account or listen for messages on their analog answering machine maybe they have at home. Whatever it is, you should be thinking about that ahead of time so it's clear to everybody on both ends how they're going to communicate. It's also important to have family members' contact information for your staff. You may not be able to reach your employee, but you may be able to reach their family, and they would know the condition or whereabouts of your staff member. You're going to most likely want to help out taking care of all of the family members. I know in some of the disasters up here, fires in particular, that was an important thing to make sure everybody was safe on the staff and their family before everybody's getting back to work trying to restore services. So think about that ahead of time. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to notify people? Vendors, how are you going to contact? I mentioned you might need to call in your HVAC vendor to get your air conditioning system back up. Your IT vendor, your vendor that delivers key supplies to you if you're a medical office, that kind of thing. So you need to think about who they are, which ones are critical to operate in the event of a disaster, and document them in writing in your plan, who they are, who are the key contact persons, and how are you going to reach them. I suggest having obviously their main phone number, but alternate contact information if their phone system is down. So the time to get that is before the disaster happens, not in the midst of everything else. It gets very stressful when this information is not available. You may not be able to look up their contact information on the internet at the time you need them. So get that down in writing in your plan. Get a copy of this stored off of your network in physical medium where you can access it. Clients, key stakeholders, first responders, all of that. So these are all things that go into your plan as they're relevant to your organization. And then you're going to need to think about and talk with your own business owner on training. So the staff that are helping you out in a disaster and trying to bring systems back online, you're probably going to need to do some training. It's not something they do on a daily basis. So how are you going to do that? Are you going to be able to get some extra time? Are they going to need to do this after hours? So you need to be thinking about these things ahead of time. We talked about the identification, IT resources. So what are you going to actually need to bring your system up and running? We've been called in to businesses that were running their own IT. They had a major disaster, and they called us in to help bring them up as quickly as possible. And they had, let's say, a backup tape that they've been changing out regularly, but they don't know what backup software was generating those tapes, nor do they have a disk or a key to reload it. So we're stuck trying to figure all of that out while they're down. It gets very stressful very quickly, becomes more expensive, and it really increases the time that the business is down and not able to provide services to their clients. So you want to think about everything you're going to need to restore your organization to full operation, or at least the critical systems that you've identified, and have that available so that it can be used. In the case of that business, they had the tape backup, but we still had to get a new server. We had to find the right software, restore their files. It took a little while. So think about that. what are the risks and what's the impact on your IT assets? We talked about the types of risks that you may face. You want to think about the ones that will affect your business. If you're not in a floodplain and the chances of a flood are remote, you're not going to need to do a lot to prepare for that. However, you may be on an earthquake fault like we have in California here. So chances of something like that happening are higher than the flood. You want to address the most likely disasters or risks. Up here in the North State, fire season rolls around. It's pretty much of a risk if you've got a business in the remote area that's dried out, affected by the drought. You want to think about how you're going to protect yourself from a fire and make sure you can recover from that. The process for equipment replacement, I talked about that a little bit. Let's say your building burns down. We've seen this happen. Nothing is recoverable from that building. You're not going to be able to get your server and reload your data and start it up. You need to get a new server. How long is that going to take? What do you need? Do you have it documented on what the requirements are, or what the capacity, the processing power, the disk space, all of that on the servers that burnt down in the fire? Do you know what to get? Where are you going to get it? How long is that going to take? Usually at this point, you're spending some money that you're going to get reimbursed by your insurance. Hopefully you have insurance that covers that, so you can get it coming. Where are you going to get it? What are you going to get? You need to think about that ahead of time. If you have an IT provider, they can give you a system inventory of all of your IT assets. That's a good thing to have a hard copy stored off of your network, or make sure they have that available and you know how to reach them in the event of a disaster. But think about it ahead of time. There are different solutions, different backup and disaster recovery solutions that help you in this area. So one of the backup technologies we use, not only do you have local backups, but they're also automatically synced to the cloud every night. And in that case, we could actually bring your server up virtually in a data center in the cloud. Within an hour, you're back up and running, you're accessing your critical servers and services, and then you have some time to go acquire the replacement equipment for your new location or your temporary location, and then you move your server data back to those, so you're up and running much more quickly, as opposed to waiting for new equipment to arrive, get set up, get loaded, and restore your backups. Spare parts, you may have a hard drive and a RAID array that's providing some protection. It goes out. You're going to want to get a replacement drive before another one fails. How are you going to do that? What parts are they? Do you have documentation on exactly what you need to get up and running with that? And then identify a designated spokesperson. Many times in a disaster, your customers want to know how when are they able to work with you again or receive the services that your business provides. Who do they contact? Do you have a designated spokesperson? You can put out some information on the local news or on a radio station. Who are the key people that clients and others can talk to about what's going on with your business. Some of the other things to determine and think about are your RTO and RPO. We went into this on a previous webinar, but these are your recovery time objective and recovery point objectives. So your RTO, recovery time objective, how long can your business afford to be down in the event of a disaster? You need to think about that ahead of time, because how you react and how you bring your system back up and the technology you use to do that before the disaster all play into that. Is if you don't provide mission critical services to the community, maybe it's okay to have 2 or 3 day recovery time objective. You get a new server, overnight it, your staff or your IT provider will rebuild the server, reload your data. You could be up in a few days if everything goes smoothly. Other businesses, that's a lot of downtime. They're called in to help in the event of a disaster, let's say, that's widespread in the area, like an earthquake or a fire, and they need to get back up and running within a few hours or by evening or the next morning. So you need to think about that ahead of time. Otherwise, while you're down, if you haven't thought about it, it's going to take a long time to get up and running. Recovery point objectives are how much data can you lose in the event of a disaster. So, for example, do you take weekly backups or daily backups? If you can't afford to lose data from yesterday. You want to make sure you're getting nightly backups. They're working, they're successful. It's getting off-sited, whether you're rotating media off-site manually, like a tape or external hard drive, or you have a cloud-based system. Some systems allow you to take multiple backups a day. Some businesses say, I can't lose more than an hour's worth of work. It would be very expensive or impossible to recreate it. So that's your recovery point objective, different than your recovery time objective. Preventative controls. So what are the things you can do to avoid some of those types of disasters, like the technical glitches and the system failures? So you need to be proactively maintaining your network and your servers and your technical environment. So there are some definite things you can do that will prevent downtime, or if it happens, minimize how much downtime you actually have. We talked a little bit about the response and recovery strategies, but there are different ways to do that. Let's say acquiring a new server versus spinning it up in the cloud. Those are two different strategies that you can put in place and test. Notification procedures, we talked about the communication over here, but there are some automated. We have clients that have automated systems. They can remotely connect into the system. It has a copy of their most recent customer database, and they can push out automatic phone calls to their key clients and at their main contact number that lets them know about how to reach them, what's going on in the event of a disaster, anything they need to know. And these can be automated. You may have these, if you have kids in school, this is a popular thing now where they're calling you and you hear a recorded message about things coming up this week. So that same technology is in use by businesses as well. What are your recovery and failover procedures? If you do have a disaster or you have a system failure, what are the procedures that you're going to follow, and what do you need to make sure that you're failing over to your backup systems and you're up and running as quickly as possible? Think about that ahead of time, not during the disaster. Same thing, once you are through the disaster and you want to resume your normal business operations, you have new equipment perhaps, what's the system restart and fail back procedure? How do you come off of your backup system or your temporary location environment and restore full operation on your normal production hardware? Those are two different things, fail over and fail back. You need to think about them. And then same with your business. What are you going to do to resume your business procedures? Is all of your staff now available to come back in, business as usual? Are you running on reduced capacity because some of your staff members are still out dealing with another aspect of the emergency, maybe with their families? So how are you going to resume your business? And then lastly, use. How are you going to run the business in the event of a disaster? There are what they call hot and cold sites. Okay, a hot site, you may have a secondary office nearby or in another close city that you can shift your operations, restore your data. They may have a backup copy of your data synchronizing to that location, and that's your off-site. And you can come up pretty quickly. I would call that a hot site. They've already got the hardware, the network, and you can be up and running quickly. A cold site, an example of that would be you can obtain space in another building in the area, and it's already got power and what you need to run, but you don't have any of your particular equipment. You can either acquire temporary equipment, loaners, or you can move your equipment over. Let's say there was an earthquake, but your server room and your server rack was fine. You just can't operate in your facility because there's a gas leak. Actually, I wouldn't want to go in and get my server if there's a gas leak, but the power's out, but you can go in and get your servers, remove them, take them to another site. That would be your cold site, and you can bring that environment up there, but you need to bring your equipment. So depending on your organization, how fast your recovery time objective is, these can really help out. Help desk support, call trees, who's calling who. If you have a couple hundred people in your organization, is it somebody's responsibility to call everybody individually, or do you have 10 people that your main contact calls, and then those 10 people call 20 people each, and now everybody's notified? So You can think about things like that, and they should be prepared with that information ahead of time. I know we've used this in the past, a conference bridge, so you can use a service like freeconferencecall.com. There's many of these now. You can set up a bridge that's always available for free, and you and your staff need to know that number, and they can call in from anywhere they are, from whatever communication is working into this bridge, and everybody's talking to each other on one big conference call. We've had these bridges open while we're recovering a business, and our techs are on those conference bridges on a speakerphone, and the owners or key managers in a business can call in at any time and get an update. How are things going? Do they need any other help? That kind of thing. So look into that. There's lots of great resources for that. Okay, so now that you've identified and thought about all those things, and you're building your plan, once you have the plan in place, you need to test it. How do you know that plan is going to work? You need to do some testing of it. Otherwise, you're going to find out at the wrong time you're missing something. Somebody isn't restoring a key component of the business, and you're not able to get up and running. So obviously you want to do a test. You want to do the test, maybe once or twice a year to make sure everything's accounted for. And you can do the tests after hours. I've seen most of these happen after hours, not impacting the day-to-day business. And you just have to get all the people you need to execute your test and make sure they're available and ready to go. Make sure everything's documented. Like I mentioned, you want this plan in writing, and you need to make sure the plan is updated. Let's say you build the plan next month in September, and in January you bring on a new software platform that you're doing your financial reporting off of, or your healthcare office, and now you have a patient portal. You need to make sure the plan is updated to include that now, if that's something you need to get up and running in the disaster. So make sure it's all documented. I mentioned before licenses and license keys, and where that software is located to either re-download or load from an external hard drive or a disk, so that you can get up and running. It needs to be spelled out. It gets pretty stressful during an emergency trying to figure all this stuff out, and it can be done. It just extends the stress on you and your staff and your business owners, and the downtime that you're going to have. Think about the test. You may not be able to test all aspects at one time, but you can break the test down section by section or area by area, and you know best within your business what those logical areas might be. Maybe you test your financial reporting system on one day, and then the next day you test your customer database or your website, that kind of thing. So you can break those down. It doesn't have to be one long extended test, and those are important things to think about. You want to find an environment to do the test, preferably not on your production area. You don't want to affect actual business with your test. We've seen a lot of organizations use their conference room, where they have some extra space, and they make that kind of the testing headquarters. Everybody's communicating in there. They're using some loaner equipment to try and restore from. So this is something you got to think about and work out. What do you need to actually use the test? I have seen organizations rent equipment to conduct the test, and at least they know what they need. They can assess that and run through the pieces. During the test, you want to make sure all the personnel or your staff members that are listed in the disaster recovery plan are available and participating in the test. They're the ones you're going to be counting on when you're down to do their job and to understand how it's going to work and be successful. So you want to make sure they're executing their role in the test, and if they need any help, that you document that, who needed what, who did they go to for help. Is that person going to be available, or are you going to train your person that's responsible in that area on that new additional information or capability? Everybody that's supposed to react in emergency should be part of the test. Keep score. Keep an idea of how long it's going to take. This will give you a better idea on restoring everything in the event of a disaster, how long you will be down. You may want to modify your plan or your systems to reduce that time if it took too long. This can be factored back into the plan, and you can make some adjustments and update it based on that. You want to make sure you keep careful notes of what worked well, what didn't work. Write that down, document that so that you can make some changes as needed to address that and update your report. You may decide to put another resource on something if that would help speed it up, and because you didn't get it done in the time you were anticipating. So different things can come up, but keep notes. It's very easy to forget about things in a disaster. If you got something that you've just dealt with and you move on to the next thing and you don't remember now later, and your plan isn't updated, and that same thing's going to happen in the event of a real disaster. And then lastly, for testing, do a dry run. Do another term for this in some of the materials. See, it's called a tabletop test. So you may not actually get a loaner server and recover your data to it, but you're going to pretend that you are and make sure you have all of the steps in order to do that. The dry run or the tabletop test is going to help determine gaps that you thought were going to go smoothly, but they didn't, or pieces of information that might be missing. So you can do that. That'll give you a little bit easier cut at it and not be as resource intensive. So those are some of the key tips on testing the plan once you've built it. We're asked oftentimes, where does a small and medium business owner start? They know they need this. They don't really know what it's going to take. They don't know what shape their systems are in right now. If they were to experience a disaster, they may be doing backups. They don't know how often they're doing them, what's actually going on the backups, how are they getting off site, and even more importantly, are you able to recover things from your backups? So one of the things that we do at Apex is called our technical assessment. So we'll come out, take a really good look at your organization, the technology you have, help you determine where you're at now, where should you be based on industry best practices, and what are the gaps and how do you get there. We give you a nice high level along with all the detail of, we call it our baseline report. There's 4 areas we evaluate: your inventory, your security, your reliability, and your sustainability. And there's 8 layers that we look at, and you get little red, yellow, green dots, very high level, and then we go into detail with the more involved reports and data that we found. This is a combination of question and answer, physical inspection, and some software tools that we load on your network and collect all this information. So anyway, technical assessments are a really good place to start. That information has been used by organizations that have their own IT staff to help make a plan or a 3-year budget or IT roadmap. Some of it has been used to create RFPs, requests for proposals, for bids on getting a certain project done, or they've sent it to their IT provider to start to work on some of those things. So it's a really good independent look at what you actually need. So that's a good starting point to think about. You can talk to us, go to our website, give us a call. We can tell you what that would take. Okay, as I said, this is the final webinar in the series. All of these have been loaded up to YouTube already. If you go to YouTube and search for Apex Technology Management, or link over from one of the videos on our media page on our website, you'll see those there. Those can be played back at any point. There are white papers associated with each one of these. We'd be happy to email that out to you if you need. And we'll be having some additional webinars on some other topics that you'll get notified. But this webinar, probably within a week, will be uploaded as well if you need to replay it or you want somebody else to listen in and get the information as well. Okay, great. I appreciate everybody for dialing in today and listening to the material. Again, you can give us a call at 800-310-2739. Go to our website at apex.com or shoot us an email, info@apex.com. We're pretty easy to get a hold of. Again, thanks for coming and have a great rest of your day.